Again,
Good
my name is
afternoon.
Keith Howell, and first we have a word from one of our sponsors, Nubian K Essentials. Is your mango butter, #1 seller. You can kiss your ashy skin goodbye with this.
Kiss your ass.
And Tangiers, men love this. Tangerine, grapefruit, shea butter, other essential oils and herbs. And then we have our #1 seller, mango butter soap, plant and fruit base, lemongrass,
That's my favorite.
coconut milk. Those you have eczema repair, Dead Sea salt and eucalyptus. And then we have triple butter, shea butter, cocoa butter, and mango butter. Pure shea butter. And we have a black soap that I don't have right now. I have in a week because I sell out of it. And my number is, if you want to reach me, is 609-841-7514. And that's Nubian K Essentials. And that's our word from our sponsor today. Today, I'd like to talk about, this will be 2 parts. I'd like to talk about the indigenous people of America, Black people, seeds of Kemet. And I am really, I hope you get to feel the same way I feel. I am fascinated. I am highly impressed with Black people doing this research. But I also must say that this has not been a mistake. We have been totally lied to. Our history has been distorted. And when prominent Caucasian historians, archaeologists tried to present some of the things that you're going to find out the next 2 weeks, they were dismissed. They were called crazy. And if they even tried to go further, their funding was stopped. And so some of them, because of circumstances, had to lie, as they put it. What I've seen and what I would like to do sometime in the future, this probably will take a whole year to teach. As far as I can see, there were 16 migrations of Black people into the Americas. And I know you're probably thinking of the images that you see of the so-called Indians. Well, the first images that you see of Native Americans, you see them as being red. And again, with Black people being here first, we have over 3,000 years ago, we have Mongolians coming from Asia down the Bering Strait, integrating, amalgamating with Black people. And that's how black and yellow creates the color red. And so when you see these indigenous, or the pictures we see, you see red. But we're going to even go beyond further than that. We're going to talk about the first Black peoples that were here. Also, the other thing I'd like to say, we won't get into it this week, but probably next week. When the Mongolians came, there were 2 major invasions. And actually what happened was they chased us out to the point where they became the majority. And we just moved around. And one of the reasons why, to me, why we were defeated, the original people who were here were called the Anu. White man calls them pygmies. Or you can say the Twa. But these are so-called diminutive, small Africans who are probably about the height, at the most, 4'11". And so when they fought with these Mongoloids, I hate to say it this way, but there was really no match. So they had to move, and they had to keep moving. So there were, as far as I can see, again, 16 migrations. I'm going to reference 8 of them, and we're going to look at one today. So the first people who came were the original people, Black people, and they either came by foot, sea, or both. And they came approximately 56,000 years ago. Next came the Australian people, or Aborigine, but again, they come from Africa. But that next wave is going to be the Aborigines, and they hit the West Coast. Some of you may have heard of California, Queen California. Well, we're not going to talk about that today. Next time we will. But they say probably this is where they came from. And she was a famous Black queen. I had the pleasure of having a student this year play her part in a Black History project. The next wave that came after them was the Mongol people I just mentioned, and they established a dominant presence in the Americas, absorbing many of their Aborigine and African predecessors. And then again, the one that really wiped this out was another Mongoloid migration. And this again came from Northeast Asia and a southern route along the Pacific Islands. And then over the past 8,000 years, we probably won't be able to get into it today, but we're going to see several voyages coming from Africa, one coming from the Nubian dynasty, Kush dynasty, 25th dynasty, Taharqa. And you're going to see them mixing in Mexico. We're going to look at some pictures today as we end. And that's called the Olmec culture. And there's a bunch of monuments, artifacts that show you that we were here. And then the last one would be Brother Abubakar, who came from West Africa, never went back to Africa, but left with hundreds of ships. And we find him and his people in the northern tip of South America. But today we're going to talk about the original people based on my sources. And we're going to go to the 15th chapter of the Book of Ani, Papyrus of Ani, talks about the first people that were in Kemet, that traveled up the Nile. We went through that, and these were called the Anu people, A-N-U, or Twa people, T-W-A, who were Black people. It's one thing I want to go over though before I get into that. And again, we'll go into this later. So these are some of the pictures that we see of so-called Native Americans. And this is, again, after the Mongolian mix. But here's a classic red person right here. And we're going to look at more of these later. So the Anu, they travel up the Nile River, and they create so many great things in Kemet. And the reason why they're traveling is not only out of curiosity, but because of climate conditions and different things that are happening to the area. As you know, we have the Sahara Desert now, but at one time it wasn't there. And they're still discovering civilizations that are buried under the Sahara. So these Anu people, they traveled up into Europe, as we learned last time. And these people were going into Europe, and they were called the Grimaldi. And then they travel all the way up into the British Isles. Yep, these were your first British, your first Scottish people. Then they cross the water and go into North America, Canada, and then disperse all over America. There was another way we will cover today. They came in and they came straight from Kemet into what we know as Mexico, Caribbean islands. And they traveled all the way to the bottom of South America. For my brother David Imhotep, PhD, he has a book called The First Americans Were Africans. And this brother right here is of the Fuego people. These people are located at the southern part, the southernmost tip of South America, Antarctica, Iceland. And they are diminutive people. These are the descendants of the Anu. And so they were able to, all these years, unfortunately, like the Taino in Puerto Rico, they are basically extinct, and just like the Tasmanian people over in Australia, they are almost extinct. But that is a picture of the original people that were there. And now I'd like to, oh boy, I lost my, I'd like to take you to, again, my brother David Imhotep, and talk about the Anu. Well, actually, as the Anu traveled, these short diminutive Africans originated, again, as we say, in Africa, and then they went into Northern Europe to the Americas. They also had direct routes into Mexico and South America, as I had mentioned. Dr. Imhotep informs us of the connection between ancient Kemet and North American mounds. Now, mounds are modified pyramids that are all over America. I'm going to show you some of these pictures. And when this pandemic is over, I got a couple places we can travel, and you can see our ancestors. Those artifacts are still there. He tells us, again, this is David Imhotep, that the Egyptian artifacts have been found across North America from the Micmac Algonquin writings on the East Coast to the artifacts and Egyptian places and names in the Grand Canyon. Scattered among related data are 11 archaeological finds that are related to ancient Kemet. Most of these artifacts were found inside mounds. Some of these finds are controversial and have been branded unauthentic by some. On the other hand, could the people who label these artifacts as fakes have hidden political agendas? End of quote. And then he gives us a summary of these 11 artifacts, and I'm going to elaborate on one. Quote, here is a summary of 11 ancient artifacts found in North American mounds. The last artifact is number 11. It covers the Medu Neter, or the hieroglyphics the Micmac use, which is better covered in depth in a later section in this book. If the giant Cahokia mounds are not enough proof of civilization, let us look at an outline of the 11 other artifacts. Most of them were excavated from mounds. Number 1, cylinder seals that were also found in pyramids in Kemet. 2, copper plate ornaments. 3, the bust of a Nubian's head. 4, copper scrolls. 5, skeletons wearing copper armor, a trademark back in Kemet and Nubia. 6, a Davenport stele. 7, a Pontatic stele. These are all ornaments used in ancient Kemet. 8 megatons of copper, all in these mounds. 9 Kemetic wall paintings. 10 Grand Canyon caves. And again, number 11, Micmac metal netcher or hieroglyphic writings. I want to talk just a minute on the Grand Canyon caves. Now, this is where he was talking about being controversial. Me and a person got into it on Facebook about this. Someone had mentioned this, and this brother put in that, no, those are actually pictures from Kemet. And then I chimed in and said, yeah, those are pictures from Kemet, but also there's documented evidence that these caves exist, but the Smithsonian in 1911 tried to do away with it. Again, as I mentioned, starting this, there were many white anthropologists and historians, particularly in that era, 1911, 1910 to 1925 or so, who were trying to bring this out. And they dismissed them. And the Smithsonian was one of them. And so there's a big controversy today. They're trying to say that's fabricated, but again, just to whet your appetite, let me give you some information from brother Dr. Imhotep. Quote, when the first white men moved into Colorado and Arizona, they found that some parts of it had Kemetic names along the Colorado River that cuts through the Grand Canyon in the Rocky Mountains. The area around 94 Mile Creek and Trinity Creek had areas of rock formations, apparently with names like the Tower of Set, the Tower of Ra, Horus Temple, or its proper name, the Asar Temple. That's what it said, the Asar Temple. And Aset's Temple. Next, a newspaper article appeared in the Phoenix Gazette Monday evening, April 5th, 1909, that serves as evidence to confirm the discovery of a cave with Kemetic artifacts. However, as would be expected, this issue was clouded with controversy. So he says more on the subject is found at the end of this chapter, but cannot be corroborated by the Smithsonian Institute. That's why I was saying to you, I've read articles where the Smithsonian Institute canned it, they killed it. Now, I don't know if they've destroyed this evidence. One article said they hid it, but again, it's very fishy. But that's the evidence that they were there. Now, I said that we could probably do some traveling and look at some of these African mounds all around this country in North America. There are African mounds that are shaped like pyramids that are found in all areas of North America. The largest ones survive today. And you can go on a tour and see them. The largest ones, a whole lot of them, is right by the Mississippi River. Mississippi River is just like the Nile River. So when the Anu came over here, they thought they was back home. You know, Mississippi River is the longest river in this country. But they got pyramid complexes all around there. And I know when this thing is over, me and my wife, we're going to check this out. And it's called, the largest of all of them is called the Cahokia Mound, near the area where the Mississippi and Missouri River converge. St. Louis, Missouri. It's the largest pyramid, largest mound structure in North America. And then I've used information from Time Life Books, 1994. And now I'm going to go to some more information about the Cahokia. before I go there, I want to show you, give us a little tour of what the Cuyahoga, what they look like. All right, so this is a mound. This is where you enter in. Show you some more. This is the wide valley. Here's another. You can see that. This is what the Anu built. Want to go inside and see some of the artifacts. Can y'all see that?
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
Here's some pottery.
Mm.
And so some of the things that, you know, those are some of the things that whet my appetite. And again, I want to go. Our brother David Imhotep, and then I have some other sources I'm going to use to tell you about this great ancient black city. One of the great cities of the world, Cuyahoga, was larger than London in AD 1250. More than 10,000 people, estimates as high as 20,000, are thought to have lived in this settlement between 1050 and 1200 AD. This is taken from Ancient Midwest, Kevin McVoyhill, February 2nd, 2010. Here's another one. Author and editor of Ancient American magazine, Frank Joseph, believes Cuyahoga's population was far greater than the previous estimates. He seems to think the count was closer to 200,000 people. He came to this conclusion for the greater population estimate after factoring in Mound City and its affiliated outlying areas. Mound City stood where the modern city of St. Louis now stands. Cuyahoga is thought to have been the largest North American city built before Columbus. It has 120 earthen mounds. Several were massive with square bottoms. They were flat-type earth pyramids. In the center of the city was the largest earthen mound in the Americas. The massive, what we just looked at, 100-foot Monk's Mound. Quote, in the largest prehistoric earthwork in all of the Americas, covering more than 14 acres at its base. It stands 100 feet high and was built in a series of stages over a period close to 200 years. That's probably more than 15 million basket loads of soil, dug out with clam shells, in case you were wondering. Nearby, an ancient sun calendar has been reconstructed on the site where its remains were found. An enormous rig of tall tree trunks stuck in the ground called wood hedge. And that is taken from Nancy Sepper, Metropolitan Life on the Mississippi, which was a special to the Washington Post in 1997, March 12th, 1997. Continuing with David Imhotep, he says, around the city of Cuyahoga, crops were grown to feed the city's residents, who included government officials, spiritual leaders, as well as skilled trade workers, astronomers, and artisans, as we saw in the picture, the artisan work. Cuyahoga, center of a large trading network, was linked with other societies covering a great part of North America. So they were hooking up with other Twa Anu people. Any questions so far? Comments? Y'all there? Okay. And so there is another one that they were hooked up with, and that one is located in southwestern Illinois, and it's the city of Aztalan in southern Wisconsin. And it was a home of an aristocratic population of sage, priests, architects, astronomers, and engineers. And that comes from the Illustrated Encyclopedia of Native American Mounds and Earthworks. So they're still calling them Native Americans. And I'm gonna get to, besides the comedic pictures, drawings, language, I'm going to show you some other evidence that's going to show you conclusively that these were Black people and these weren't the so-called Indians. They're not even here yet. This is Black people. This is us. They built walls and rectangular towers for protection. Their enormous walls were completely plastered with a mixture of shell clay, as in Cahokia. I'm sorry. So that was the second one. It says, according to G.L. Little, Advanced Civilizations of Prehistoric America, the people who settled Aztlan built large, flat-top pyramid mounds and a stockade around their village. Remember that Cahokia was and is famous for their flat-top pyramid mounds. It is believed that the Aztecans moved north to Wisconsin from the large mound settlement at Cahokia near St. Louis, Illinois. And so David Imhotep continues, this was a one-of-a-kind in America. It was similar to what the Carthaginians built in Africa before they were built in Rome. The city itself was connected at its north end to nearby rock-like via a stone aqueduct 3 miles long. For 3 miles, the level of the aqueduct had to continue to slightly decrease so the water would continue to flow through a gravitational pull the entire distance from Rock Lake to Aztalan. So we're talking about going from Illinois all the way up into Wisconsin, the southern end. That was quite an engineering feat for people who were described by insurgent Europeans as savages. Yes, aqueduct technology was also part of ancient America. And so I think at this point, many of us can realize what we have been taught since first grade, as far as the people of America. I mean, they first came with Christopher Columbus discovered America, and we always ask, well, how did that happen? And then once we got past that, they said, well, you know, it was the Indians who were here. They came from the Bering Strait. Totally. Again, I haven't even talked about those Mongolians yet. This is us. And we're talking, again, 56,000 years ago when they came here. The Mongolians didn't come until 3000 BC, before the Christian era. There's another complex of ancient pyramids, canals, and artificial lakes with paved bottoms just across the Mississippi River. And this is called Memphis, Tennessee. It is believed that an ancient Egyptian city called Memphis, called by the Greeks, once existed there. This is another example of an ancient Egyptian or Kemetic influence in North America. Let me tell you about Memphis. We kind of touched on it last time. So the original name of Memphis in Kemet was Hikkepotah, which means Lord of Truth and Creator of the world. Later on, this is a very important city. In another dynasty, it develops into the Embu Hedge because the mud bricks were white and gleamed in the sun. They changed the construction. But this was the capital. This was the epicenter, the middle of Upper and Lower Kemet. This was the meeting place. It unified Lower and Upper Kemet. And remember, Kemet was in a civilization that stretched over 4,000 miles. In the 6th dynasty, King Pepi built a great pyramid there. And he changed the name of the city to Man-Nefer More. Man-Nefer More, which means enduring and beautiful, aspect of God. Netters are aspects of God. So that word Menfermar is when the Greeks took over, they renamed it Memphis. Now watch this. Ironically, the racist general, and I probably would say brother to the clown we have now, 45, Trump, Andrew Jackson, along with 2 other white travelers, explorers, they see these, they see this stuff in this area of Tennessee, and they name it Memphis. That's where Memphis came from. A lot of times you can just look at names that we see and say, well, that's peculiar, it sounds like African, you know, thing like, well, this is proof. We start digging, you know, that we were here and certain things were going on we don't know about. Let's talk more about these mounds. So again, diminutive or small Africans were probably the primary builders of the mounds in the Americas. And as we said before, they had sailed from the old world. Now, there have been distortions when whites took over or they created white characters of these. So many times they do this with comedic things that are really positive and godly. And now you hear the squalings, the midgets, the dwarfs, all these negative connotations, small people or diminutive people. So they distorted it from the Anu and Twa, another name for them. When they went into England, they came up with all of these mystical words. What's that little one, the morphs? What do we call them? Man, there was a cartoon series on them. Little guys, white guys.
On what cartoon?
Oh man, Smurfs.
Oh, the Smurfs, yeah.
Yeah. Well, these are variations of derogatory ways of making our people into villains and into demonic figures. But it all happens there in England. When they start fighting, and whites are fighting blacks and getting them out. And again, we're traveling over here, which is where we create the mounds. Mounds are not only in Africa, you can find them in Europe, you can find them in Asia. Again, this is the Ani people traveling all over the world, black people. Once in the Americas, we were reported to have built and lived in subterranean mound chambers as we did in Britain. According to David Himotep, the interior was a megalithic stone slab building and roof made with either large stone slabs laid horizontally or a corbel vaulted roof. Slabs laid progressively overlapping each other toward the center. This is the same thing, and some of you have been to the Great Pyramid. You will see in the Grand Pyramid. It's called the Grand Gallery Hallway, and it's supported by identical architectural technique, corbelled vaulted roofs slabs. This technique can be seen today, called masonry arches over large doors or hallway entrances, also called the Pelasgic arch. Most of the interior stone structures in the mounds were covered by tremendous mounds of earth. There were some, however, that were not covered with earth, such as those at the American Stonehenge in New Hampshire that can be easily seen today as in figure 14. Let me show you figure 14 so you can get a look at some of these mounds. And this is a miniature one. But you know what? It's miniature, but it goes a long way under the ground. We're going to talk about that now. The state of Iowa is just about on the same latitude as Pennsylvania, which is far below Canada and the Arctic. Now, this is a quote from The Making of Iowa, February 2nd, 2010, by Ogunwich. Ages ago, quote, when Iowa was much different in aspect from that which it bore when the whites first saw the country, a race of human beings inhabit this territory. On its edge lived a race of short, stout, flat-featured, flat-nosed men and women. Talking about black people, y'all. That's me. Of them we know little. Anytime, you know, it was black people, it's always mysterious. We know little. They go on to say, we know more of the mound builders who succeeded these short people. In Iowa, groups of mounds are found. The mound builders evidently preferred the banks of the rivers for their works. Well, guess what? When we see this, the mound people, they're the same people. They're the Ani, they're the Twa. In North America, they become the Squazing. All right, but these are all the same people. Brother Imhotep goes on to say the probability for any tall people arriving in the Americas before the diminutive Africans is minuscule. We see that the same small African Skralings, again, the name they call North American Anu or Twa, were the first people in the extreme northern part of the Americas, the Arctic and Canada. Then we see the diminutive African people of Tierra del Fuego, the last remnants of the first Americans seen at the extreme southern part of the Americas by the Britons of the HMS Challenger during their voyage there in the 19th century. That's David Imhotep. And again, we're going to go to the Fuego. These again are Anu who have been chased out, and they settle in the southern part, the most southernest part of South America, which is Antarctica. All right, continuing with the mounds. They are built for short people. The short people, race of short, stout, flat-featured men and women, were in the Americas 56,000 years ago. Based on this evidence, it is most likely that these short people did not predate the mound builders, but were one and the same. Megalithic mound chambers are in New England and Canada and can still be seen today. There are 40 chambers in Vermont alone. So we can go up to Vermont too. You want to take a little vacation up there, that quiet place? We can go look at our ancestors there also. A particular popular mound is seen in the film version of Tolkien's movie, Lord of the Rings. It is very similar to the mound sketch in figure 12. And let me go to figure 12. Here's figure 12. This is a mound. Our ancestor, and here's another one. See that? These are all built by our ancestors that I knew as they traveled all through North America. And so these were the first Americans. Again, they're small like that so that they can get through. These are small people. But inside of these, there's chambers, monuments. It looks like you're in the pyramids back home where they came from in Camden. So let's talk about these Fuerte people. This guy right here. This is the bottom of South Africa, these people. Some people try to say, well, these were, and we're gonna get into this next week because this is kind of intense. They're trying to say that these were Australians, Aborigines. Well, again, Aborigines, Australians are the same as Africans. It's just that the Africans come from Africa. And through climatic changes, there's some variations. But again, this is a trick that the white man did years ago. They didn't want to say Africans, so they would show you Australians with long hair and say, well, they came from here. And then I was reading and doing my research. It don't make sense for these people all the way right here at the bottom of South America, which is right across from Africa, that they traveled all the way from Australia. But these were not Africans. And lo and behold, found my research, no. And you can see this is clearly a brother from the continent, the Fuego. So let's talk about the Fuego before we go. All right. During the brief ice age warming period experienced in Europe 40,000 years ago, African people entered into many European landscapes. Some of these were inevitably valleys. One of these valleys could easily have been the Yurok Valley. After another long journey, the Yurok, specifically stated they ended their long journey at the furthermost southern border of South America. That area is none other than Tierra del Fuego. And this is from Cleveland Winters. It's called the Gibraltar out of Africa exit for anatomically modern humans. He says the African people of sub-Saharan Africa still share the same M174 and D haploid groups as the African cohesion. This is the third hint of the Yurok's African heritage. If all these are but coincidences, they are most assuredly remarkable coincidences. Let's go to a little bit more about these Fuego. See the picture of them. Let me show you a picture from, the white man calls them pygmies. Proper name is Ani Ottawa. But this is in Africa, these diminutive Africans. And these are the same people who travel across the world into North America and South America. Brother Imhotep also says that the original Fuegans also had dark skin and peppercorn hair, like some Southern Africans of today, as seen as the photograph I just showed you. And he says, remember, genetically, the Fuegans of South America still share the same N174 and D haploid groups as the African cohesion. And these were mound builders. So you can look at some of this, and there's a movie called 30,000 BC, The First Americans. You can also read about it in Van Perez, Valerie Bernard, and Paula N. Gonzalez's The Fuerte People. And then finally, I just want to say that again, I think beyond a shadow of a doubt, the indigenous people that came to this country were black people, So get your appetite, keep you hungry for next week. This is what we're going to get into next week. They're called Olmec. We're going to get into the Moors, that came to America, black people. We're going to get into the Aborigines. Well, I try to. There's a black culture in Arizona called Folsom. I was watching this on the Smithsonian Channel the other day. Very interesting. They're talking about, we don't know where these people came from. They're mysterious. Those are black people. We'll try to get into them next week. So here's some things skulls we found in Mexico. These are black people, would you say? You can see a comparison of a black woman, and this was found in Mexico. And we're talking from the King Taharka, the 25th dynasty of Kemet. You see the brother, you see the cornrows and the colored woolly hair. You see that? These are all found in America. Nobody gonna tell me that the Native Americans, the red people, were the original people here. Look at all these monuments. Here's a so-called, this is later, a Black Indian chief, so-called.
Well, you know, Keith, there's a video I want to share with people.
Sure.
That they can look at called Black Grandmom in the Closet.
Mm.
It's talking about the Black Mexicans.
Okay.
In present time.
Black Grandmom in the Closet?
It's called Black Grandmom in the Closet.
Wow.
It's on YouTube
this week.
If anybody's
I'm gonna just show you a little bit more just to get you whet your appetite for next week. So here's the Olmecs. They tried to say
they were
from outer space.
Yeah, and they also said they were babies.
Right, babies, all kinds of, you know. But this is this is what we're going to be doing next week. We'll get into some of that, and we're going to look at these red, and we're going to just discuss this Mongolian invasion and how they pushed us around. But we fought for a while. We were here for thousands of years, and we set up so much. Any questions or comments? I really enjoyed doing this. I really enjoy doing the research on this, and I can't wait for this.
If anybody's if anybody's interested, also, I pulled up an article called "Africans Lived Here First," and it's specifically about the mounds Mr. Howell is talking about, and how they were built by the Africans. So all you have to do is put in the browser. Africans Lived Here First is an article that was written in the Illinois Times paper. If you're interested, it's not a long article. It's just if you're interested. You can also probably find something on YouTube about the mounds, because they're really famous, especially in the Mississippi Valley, Ohio and Mississippi. They're very well known. They don't talk about it, but they're very well known.
So I hope y'all enjoyed it, and I hope y'all come see me. This is my African 10-in-1 oil.
Okay.
Got this. This is Talia's favorite. Talia used to sell this.
Yeah.
We put it together.
Love
Yeah.
it.
Before everybody goes,
Huh?
just in general information, I want to share a site with you to go to. It's called Hometown History, and it's a site devoted to African history and African American history. It's very interesting because they pose questions and then give answers. So, like, a question will be, what was happening? What were Africans doing during the time of Alexander the Great? What were Africans doing during the rise of Genghis Khan and the Mongol Empire? So you get different questions across the whole span of history, and they do it very, very well. It's just simply called Hometown History. They do a lot of presentations on YouTube, and you can get, I found the site, it came to me on Pinterest, and then I went to it. It's an absolutely astounding and fantastic site. All of the contributors are young African-American PhDs and historians. And they are exceptional. So, because to be able to pose a question, when you look at the time frame of Alexander the Great, and be able to pose the question and not only pose it, but then move forth to answer it, like, what were Africans doing during the time of Alexander the Great?
Wow. Or
looking at other circumstances, so the site is called Hometown History.
Awesome.
And thank you very much, Keith. We appreciate you, bro.
I appreciate y'all. Thank you. And I'll see y'all next week.
Yes, sir.